नमस्ते
नमस्ते नमस्ते
सन्चै हुनुहुन्छ
सन्चै सन्चै
कस्तो छ अहिले क्रिसमसमा यही बस्दाखेरि
क्रिसमसमा धेरै राम्रो खुसी लाग्यो मलाई
तर you are first time spending Christmas in USA instead of Nepal because of COVID.
For 30 years almost, yeah.
30 years. It's so different.
It's so different. And I'm used to, we have a big Christmas at Olga Murray. We have Father Christmas, and he comes with the doko full of presents, and the kids are so used to it. We have pretty stockings for the little ones. And I really like that holiday because in the stockings, we have little things like, a piece of candy, maybe a little toy, a scarf, a pair of gloves. And these kids are so excited about that. It's like you're giving them the most wonderful video game. They're just so excited with these simple things. It really makes me feel good when they're unpacking it and comparing what they got. It makes me feel so good to see it because it reminds me of all the good things NYF has done over the years in Nepal. It makes me very happy.
So if anyone who doesn't know Olga Didi, who is Olga Didi? If for them.
All right. So I am a former lawyer who was working in San Francisco, and I went to Nepal for the first time to trek in 1984, and I fell in love with the children, just completely in love with them. We were walking on the trail. They would hold my hand and laugh at my 10 words of Nepali, and what they all wanted to do was go to school. At that time, most kids didn't go to school. They kept saying, "Can't you send us to school? Can't you send us to school?" So on the last night of the trek, we were on top of a little mountain, and there was a little house there. And I went in, a very simple house, dirt floor, and there were 3 children sitting on the floor, and there was a board across them, and each one had a candle. They were doing their homework by candlelight. There was no electricity. And the father was so proud because his children were going to school. So they had to walk up and down the mountain for a couple of hours, but they were going to school. So I was almost 60 years old at the time. And I think subconsciously I was thinking, well, I'm going to have to retire soon. And what am I going to do with all this energy if I don't work? And then all of a sudden I had this like a coming from the sky, like the sky opened and said, "Okay, Olga, you know what you're going to do now for the rest of your life. You're going to educate Nepali children." And it was just like that, one moment. Of course, I had no idea how I would do it. I didn't speak the language. I didn't know anything. So I worked for that was 34 years ago. And I went back year after year and started a program and found the right Nepalis to run it. And now we have helped over 50,000 children in Nepal since we started our foundation in 1990.
Why Nepal? You have been all over the world. Yeah. What in Nepal that drew you?
I don't know. I tell you, I came to Nepal from Delhi. I'd been in India for a couple of weeks. And the minute I landed, I just fell in love with the place. The sun was shining. People were walking down the street holding hands and smiling. And there was just something about it that made me feel very comfortable. And it was just reinforced when I went on the trek. I mean, the people were so kind and welcoming and so eager for an education. And I mean, I had no idea I would be doing this with my life, but it just came to me that this is what I need to do.
You became a Mother Teresa of Nepal.
Well, I don't know about that, but I'm totally immersed in Nepali children.
After you retire, so you are 95 years young, right?
Yeah, 95, yes.
We just celebrated your birthday.
95th, yeah. I'm very lucky. I'm very healthy and active, and have good genes. And I think part of it is Nepali kids, and they keep me on my toes and optimistic. And so they deserve a lot of the credit.
So it's just not educating children. What else does the Nepal Foundation
We're
do?
doing a lot of different things. We were very heavily involved in child malnutrition. We have built 17 little hospitals all over the country one little hospital, 10-bed hospital in every zonal hospital. There used to be 16 zones in Nepal under the prior arrangement. And it's a place where mothers come with their malnourished children, usually the mothers, and they stay there until the children are nursed back to health and given food. And we have a very, very strict rule, only Nepali food. Only food that they can get cheaply and easily in the village. No supplements, nothing that they can buy, things they can buy cheaply. And within 3 weeks or a month, you wouldn't recognize those children. I mean, they're fat and happy and healthy. And then while we're doing that, we educate the mother in all aspects of not just nutrition, but all aspects of child health and counseling. And actually, I know in one of our hospitals, the mothers gained an average of 12 pounds when they came because they were eating good food. So that's, and then we built these 17 hospitals, and then we negotiated with the government to take them over after 5 years. So now there are these little hospitals on the grounds of all the zonal hospitals, and just they're all only 10-bed hospitals, but only for malnourished children. So that's one of our big programs. I think the government has taken all but one or two now over the years. We started this program in 1998. And then we had a program which we've just completed for Kamlari. In West Nepal, the Taru community used to allow their little girls, some of them were 6, 7 years old, to go off to work at strangers' houses, sometimes in Kathmandu or wherever. And they were they weren't allowed to go to school. Almost all of them were abused. They had to work hard from morning till night. And so it took us 13 years. But what we decided to do was we wouldn't go in there and save them like the great white saviors coming in. We would empower them to get their own freedom. So when we rescued a girl, we would go to a house and the way we started was the parents needed the money that the girl earned, $50 or $60 a year. Sometimes she was the only one who was working. And so we found out that the Taras love pork. And we wanted to we were thinking about giving them money. How much the labor contractors usually bought these girls and for somebody. And we were thinking, well, we'll ask how much did the labor contractor give you? We'll give you the money if you let the girl come home. But then we decided, Soam was very smart. He went around to the villages and the women said, do not give our husbands money. They'll drink it all up and we won't have anything. And so together they decided, well, they like pork products. So we gave them a baby piglet and they could raise it on kitchen scraps. And at the end of the year, they had as much money as they got for their daughter. So then when the girls came home, we empowered them. We taught them how to demonstrate. I mean, they were the most fantastic, energetic, activist, intelligent young women, some of them 8, 9, 10, some of them 12, 13, 14. And they're the ones who really got their own freedom. I mean, we had a lot of publicity. We have TV programs, we have newspapers. We filed about 50 lawsuits against employers who wouldn't release their girls. They went on marches, I mean, hundreds of girls at a time, marching and chanting and giving out leaflets. And we had plays in the city, in the towns, because the towns, there was no theater, no electricity. So it was the only thing in town. And these girls who we had rescued, we brought them to Kathmandu to be trained in acting. And they just acted out their own experiences in the villages. So the parents and the family could see how they had suffered. And we did just all kinds of things. But the girls themselves were trained to get their own freedom. and they were fantastic. I mean, they were so smart and so intelligent. And so after 13 years, finally, the government outlawed the practice. But we just finished after 20 years. But then we were afraid that if the girls came home, they wouldn't be allowed to go to school and so forth. So we've been involved very heavily in supporting them and in vocational training. We've trained them to be all kinds of, I mean, we've trained thousands of girls to be, I mean, we rescued 12,000 girls from almost 13,000. And the practice ended. And then we helped them to form their own NGO. And it's one of the most powerful NGOs you can imagine. There are thousands and thousands of members, all returned girls. And they have started, for example, a micro lending program. Mm-hmm. And we gave them $60,000 to start it maybe 8-9 years ago. They've got over $1 million now.
Wow.
And they have their own building. I mean, it's a big, big operation now, and they've done it all. So I'm very proud of that because they did it. It's
not you just rescued them, you brought them, empowered them, trained them.
Yeah, yes.
And you changed and they are their own advocate now to abolish the system. And you change the whole community and next generation. That's very powerful.
That's the only way to make it sustainable because, for example, if you brought a girl home and then they could sell her again, if it weren't the girls themselves in all the villages who were keeping an eye on this practice. So it was, actually, that's one of the hallmarks of what we do is what we start, we finish. This took 20 years, but we were with it for 20 years and we finished it. The same thing with the nutritional homes. We only run them for 5 years, but then we hand them over to the government. And the same thing with the child. We take a child at Olga Murray, maybe 2 years old, or maybe 8 years old, whatever it is. We are with them until they graduate from college. And I mean, we support them. Or if they don't go to college, then vocational training and help them get a job. So that's one of the really important things I think about our program is not to do half measures, just to finish the job.
Isn't that how it started when you went and you saw that there were a few students in the orphanage, they wanted to go to college, but they could not afford it. And you asked them how much it will cost. And that's how you started a sponsorship is help them to move to the next stage of life.
Yes, there was four boys. I'm still in touch with most of them. They're now grandparents.
It's so rewarding to see. How...
Well, that's really what's so wonderful. I mean, I live in Kathmandu half the year, and I have a garden with a green gate, and several times a year that gate opens, and this child walks in who was a beggar at Pashupati, 25 years ago. Grew up at our home, a girl or boy, and they come back with their spouses and their children. It's wonderful. And I always think, whenever I see them, I think of what they were when they came to us.
Right.
Scared, hungry little things.
How many children have we rescued so far who have grown to J house and K house?
I don't really know, but it isn't that much because they're not huge programs. Right now we have 80 kids, but they're 20 in each house, and they're not different kids. From the time they come when they're 2 or 3 years old until 8th grade, they live together in one house. And then when they enter 9th grade high school, they just move next door to the older house. So they're with us until they go to college.
Yeah. And you have a sponsorship program as well.
Yes.
How does that work?
It's working quite well. I think the sponsors are very pleased with see the progress of their children. We have some sponsors who, I know 2 or 3 who have sponsored children 25 years ago, and they're still close to them. They come to visit them in Kathmandu. It's really very nice, very gratifying. And I'm quite close to them. Just yesterday, I had a Zoom call with the college kids. Every once in a while, they just get together and we Zoom. It's wonderful. They're terrific kids.
Yeah. And not only you have children in the Olga Puri house now, but you have this program called Kinship program, maintaining
Yes.
their.
That's another thing is we try to keep children with families if we can. I mean, if the problem is that the family can't afford to support a child, we'll support a child in the family. That's our kinship care program. Anjali is one example. After the earthquake, her parents were killed. And she had this wonderful grandfather who loved her, but he just couldn't afford to feed her. So we will support a child in the family whenever we can, rather than sending them to Olga Puri or someplace else. So we have several hundred children who are in that program, and it's working quite well. And we have like 1,000 kids under scholarship aside from Olga Puri. Medical school, college, technical school, all kinds of things.
My husband was one of the recipient of your scholarship.
Oh
During
really?
his medical
Did you go to
school, he
medical
needed a
school?
stipend. Yeah.
Oh, for heaven's sake. Yeah, I know we've educated a lot of doctors, which of course is an important thing in Nepal. Really, yeah. So that's very good.
It's not only that, you have seen a lot of political changes, economic changes over years. You started right around when the democracy came to Nepal, right?
Yes, 1984.
Yeah. What is your take into it? Has it been difficult? How has it been working over here?
It was difficult. Well, no, I mean, it hasn't been difficult working with the government because we have an all Nepali staff. I'm the only, I'm not staff. I don't get paid anything. I'm the only foreigner there. So they know how to deal with the government, and we do good work, and we're honest. We don't pay bribes. We don't do any monkey business. And I think we have a lot of respect from the government. We keep our word. And so that's not been difficult. It was quite difficult during the Maoist years because it was difficult to get out of Kathmandu to see the programs. And in fact, in one, in West Nepal, where we had our program for Kamlari girls, one time there were very few INGOs that are allowed to work there, very few. We were one of the very, very few. And one time a local Maoist commander came to our person there and said, "Oh, we just found out that you were being supported by an American organization. And we Maoists, we don't like INGOs, especially Americans, because they were, considered by the US government as terrorists. And so you have to go." So this guy, he's a genius. He's very calm, very mild. And he went out and he called the families together and he said, "Commander so-and-so says we have to leave because we were supported by an American organization." And they said, "What? What is he talking about? Who's going to do this for us? And who's going to do that for us?" And they told the Maoists, if you kick these people out, we are not going to give you shelter as you go through the Dukuri Valley into India when the government troops are chasing you. Oh. And so we were one of the very few that were able, all through the Maoist era, to continue our programs there.
And 2015 earthquake,
yes,
tragedies, and and the Nepal Youth Foundation did a lot of work as well. They were training, vocational training, building houses, distributing food, shelter, medical,
and building a lot of schools. We built, I think, 200 school rooms.
300.
200. School rooms. So we did a lot of building, and actually, I was there during the earthquake. I left 4 days after, and I have a big garden, and I had 50 people sleeping in my garden because, there's so few open spaces in Kathmandu. They were sleeping on traffic islands, and they just showed up. And, I wasn't sure how I was going to feed them and take care of them, but somehow we managed, and it turned out to be very, in fact, I was supposed to, somebody arranged a 90th birthday party for me. She invited, I didn't really want it, but she did. It's Sajani, Soam's wife. 650 people she invited.
Wow.
And the party was supposed to take place at 4 o'clock on April 25th. And the earthquake happened at 12. So of course, nobody came, but people, I had this big open space. So people slept outside and And we managed. It was a lot of, some of the Kamlari girls had been invited to come to Kathmandu to dance for my birthday, and they did beautiful dances with wonderful costumes, and they got caught in the earthquake, and they were scared to death. And so they slept in the garden, about 20 of them, and it was so they were there for about 3 days, and then I had already arranged to leave 4 days after the earthquake, and so I left. But it was good because that's the day we ran out of water at my house, so it would have been difficult. And our children were camped outside because the house wasn't badly damaged, but they were afraid to go inside. And so when I stopped to see them, as the little boys, they were having a ball. They were running around outside, and the older kids were chasing them, and it was like a camping trip for them. And they said to me, "Oh, Mommy, when can we have another earthquake?"
They all call you Mommy.
Yeah, yeah. Olga, no, a mom for the older ones, a mommy for the younger ones. Yeah. When can we have another earthquake?
So there, as I mentioned about counseling center, we have a
Yes.
counseling services.
Yes.
How does that work, or where do we provide?
Well, we have, I think 4 or 5 counselors on staff, and it's not only for our direct children, but they offer counseling to outside people, to outside organizations that have children's homes, and they train people who deal with children, like house parents and others who deal with children, and how to deal with children, how to counsel children. And especially now during the COVID, they're doing counseling online, and it's very important because there's a lot of trauma.
It is.
And the person who runs it, I'm very proud of her. She just got her PhD from an American university in counseling trauma. I think she's the first child counselor PhD in Nepal. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. She's wonderful. And she's back now running the counseling center.
That's good. And how you stay half of a year in Nepal every year?
I go for Desai before Desai, and I stick as I give kids a tika, and then I leave around the 1st of May. So I'm there all winter.
All winter.
Yeah. I don't like hot weather, and so I don't like mosquitoes. So I leave in May and come back again in October.
So given the scenario right now with the COVID and the finances and economics, how are you managing to run the foundation? Because there's a huge drop in the donation.
We cut our budget by 20%, and I can't tell you how we're going to do this year, because like 65% of our donations come in at Christmas time, in the December, January period. But so far it's okay. We're about where we should be. I don't know how it's going to end up, but we have our donors, many of them have been giving it to us for years and years and years. We have a very loyal donor base. And so far we're keeping up. And we'll see. I mean, we'll see next month how things went. But we've never had to stop supporting a child or do anything drastic like that. So I hope it continues like that.
It has been tough. How was it, the work as a female at that time versus now?
It was law school was very difficult, and difficult in the sense that there were very, very few women. And some of the professors didn't, it was traditional that only men went to law school. Some of the professors weren't that nice to the few women who they were. But the really difficult part was the idea of looking for a job, because there were very few women lawyers. And you would go to if you got an interview for a law firm, they say, "Can you type? Can you do secretarial work? Because you're a woman lawyer." No judge would stand for the court, and our clients wouldn't like it. So if you type, you can come to work here. So even the first woman judge of the U.S. Supreme Court got that. She's a graduate of Stanford. I knew her. She was also asked if she could do secretarial work, and she ended up on the Supreme Court. So I was very I was a good student, and I felt confident that I could finish law school and pass the bar exam, but I wasn't sure about getting a job. I was really quite nervous about that. And I got the first job I interviewed for, and I went for 1 year, and I was there for 37 years.
Wow.
I loved my work, and I realized after like 10 years and things started opening up for women, and I decided I have the best job in the law. I mean, it was you really did important work because you did the work of the judge, and you helped him decide cases, and it was and California Supreme Court is very, very, very prestigious. It had a lot of influence, and then you could work. Honestly, if you didn't believe in something, you could say, I have difficulty writing this. It was, and I worked with wonderful people. Most of them have been in private practice and didn't like it, and came back to the court. So yeah, I loved it, and I love my colleagues and the work, and so when I was in my 60s and thought, my God, what am I going to do if I have to retire? You don't have to retire here, but I always knew I would work with children when I retired. So, but I had I'm not even sure I ever heard of Nepal. I had no idea of Nepal. So, twists and turns of life. Yes.
Wow. Is there anything that you regret not doing during your adult life?
Really, the thing I most regret not doing is that I didn't start earlier in Nepal, because if I had started earlier, I could have done a lot more good. 1984 was the first time I went there, and I gave one scholarship to the kitchen boy on our trek. But if I had started earlier, I think I could have done more good. But 30 years is a good record.
So what keeps you moving? What motivates you every day?
Oh, I'm an optimistic person, and I have a lot of friends, and the kids in Nepal. I mean, my joy is really being around them. I love them. I mean, they're just so responsive and so affectionate and so loving and so cute. I mean, I just can't get enough of them.
You mentioned something about your friend who used to or at least I watched your TED talk, and you said something, at least participate in the cause at the moment of our time,
Yes,
making a difference in other people's life. And it's not about the car that you have or a designer's dress.
Clothes, yeah. I mean, now I think I said at the end of your life, when you look back on your life, you're not going to think, oh, I could have bought that car or I could have bought that nice dress. What you think about is how you have impacted the lives of other people. And there's nothing more satisfactory than knowing that you've done that. So I think that's one thing that makes me happy. Although I have to say, it isn't me who does it. It's the staff in Nepal. We have all Nepali staff, and they're very, very smart and very committed. And they've been with us for a long time. It's a pretty big staff at this point. And they're the ones who do the work. I always say to some, you do all the work, I get all the credit.
You lead them, you inspire them, you lead them to the right. And you started it.
I started it, and I still do some of the fundraising, and because some of these people have been giving it for 25 years, and I've become friends with some of them, and I'm still on the board. Tom succeeded me as president several years ago. So I just feel really good that I'm passing something on to him that's a going concern, and that it will continue after I'm gone. That makes me very happy. Although I'm not ready to go just yet.
There's a lot more work to do. There is a lot more. Right. You mentioned something about buying a dinner in one of the fancy restaurants would save children's life, one child's life, or at least.
Yeah. Yes, when I first went to Nepal, and I could see how poor people were, and I realized that for the price of a good dinner in San Francisco, I could literally save somebody's life in Nepal. And I thought, this is ridiculous. Why does the world work like this? And that's one of the things I tell our donors or prospective donors is, you know, you can give up that nice dress or you can give up the dinner and you could have such a big impact on a child's life. It's a powerful message.
That is very true. Like people like me who have migrated here, immigrated from Nepal, if we always have this feeling about giving back to community or doing something from our aspect, what is the advice that you want to, or what do you want to ask them or not tell them kind of what would be?
Well, I think to stay involved, keep them in your heart and give as much practical help as you can. And you're doing that with these programs. I mean, do you have any idea how widespread they are? What your audience?
It is pretty. We have a lot of Nepali and audience, especially the Nepali audience. Nepali have migrated to different places, immigrated, and I do the FM radio programs weekly in different part of the country. That's the way to reach the mass population at the same time. Do you want to say something about it? What kind of programs you used to run for Kalmari back then?
Yes. One thing we did, the first thing we did was every Sunday night on FM, we would have girls who returned from their work, from being Kamlari, and talk about their experiences while they were Kamlari. And that was very, very powerful because, you know, Nepalis, they don't complain. It's just a culture that seems to bear all the burdens without complaining. And these girls, because sometimes they knew that they had to work. They were the only support for their family, and they didn't come. So the families really didn't know how much they suffered. So when they came back and they were you know, again with their families, and we put them on the radio to show the parents how these girls suffered, because a lot of them didn't know that. That was very powerful. And the street plays were very powerful too. I was at several of them, and you'd see, you know, it was kind of an exaggerated portrayal of the employer hitting the Kamlari, and the Kamlari working from day to night and crying as she scrubbed the floors. You could see the people in the audience crying with tears coming down their cheeks. I mean, they had no idea what their girls were going through.
It is very traumatic especially for children, a 7 or 8-year-old. How can you expect them to work? That you're taking their right to be a child. That's basically.
Yeah. So one of the things we did was when they got back, you know, in our counseling center trained peer counselors who were a little bit older, girls who were a little bit older who'd come back and seemed to have a knack for it. We trained 300 peer counselors who could counsel the other girls who have been traumatized by their experiences. So it's a very successful program, and I'm very proud of it, especially because it was the girls who did their own freedom.
You had to heal the whole community by training them, and especially with our small country like ours and underdeveloped, it's still developing. It's kind of difficult we have to educate the next generation because, and also the part you said, we never complain it. Is it a generational learned helplessness? Like we learned there's nothing no one can help us with, or so it's kind of, you have to do it, otherwise who else is going to do it?
Yeah, I think Nepalis are quite stoic by nature. And I mean, we never criticize the families because they were in desperate circumstances, almost all of them. I mean, they had to send these girls off so their other kids could eat, even though it was only, you know, $60 or $70. Oh, the parents got the money. The girls never got any money. And so the point was not to demonize them, but to tell them how their girls suffered, and that it was illegal, actually illegal to do it. Some actually went to the Supreme Court in Nepal and got a verdict saying that this was a practice that was illegal and the government would stop it. They didn't pay any attention. So Yeah, and we had a lot of cooperation from the media, and I mean, we arranged for our girls to go to see the Prime Minister, and I mean, they're fantastic. And now they have this incredible NGO it's got some building, it's got this,
That's run by Kalmari.
All run by Kalmari.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, it was a very, very successful program.
Is there anything that you want to see more be done, or any area that needs to be improved? That you do provide, Olga Puri, there's a vocational training for a youngster too, right?
Yeah.
For adults before they go for become a migrant worker to Middle East or somewhere. You do training for masonry, carpentry. Yeah.
Well, so we are emphasizing vocational training because it's not just having a job. It prevents them from going abroad, and it keeps fathers home with their children and with their wives. And we're now starting something, vocational training that is mobile vocational training in the villages. We started that, and it's very popular, and it's aggravating because there are jobs for plumbers and electricians and so forth. And the Indians come across the border, they're trained, and they take those jobs. And the Nepalis are unemployed because they don't have the training. So, this is very, very important.
That's very blessing. That whatever issue that you see, you just take it and then you run with it and complete.
Well, you think like when we started the nutritional homes, I went to Kanti Hospital, and there was a little girl there. She was 5 years old. She weighed like, I don't know, 20 pounds. She was so malnourished. And her father was sitting there with tears in his eyes. And we asked we used to go to the hospital and say, if anybody needs anything that they can't afford, we'll pay for it. So the doctor had just suggested some new antibiotic that the father couldn't afford. And so we paid for it. And I went back a few days later, and her bed was empty. And I said, what happened to this child? And they said, oh, that antibiotic really worked well. So we sent her home. I said, how could you send her home? She was still as malnourished as when she came. I mean, seriously. And they said, well, half the children in Nepal are malnourished. We can't save the hospital bed for them. So that child went home and she died. And I found out that many children were discharged under those circumstances. So we just said, we have to do something about this. I mean, it just, so we started our first NRH in 1998 to take children from the hospital whose acute illness was over, but they were still malnourished. And at first it was just children coming from the hospital who would have been discharged. And then we expanded it all over the whole country.
Wow.
It worked very well. We've had, I don't know, 25, 30,000 kids through that program.
Yes, I think there's in a website we can get all the updates and all the resources what we have. And it's a wonderful organization, and I'm so honored to be able to speak with you today. And I thank you for your time. And is there anything that in the last verse, anything that you want to tell us?
Oh, just that the audience. Nepalis, you have a wonderful country. You're great people. And I love you all.
And we really thank you from whole Nepal. You are a mother of Nepal. That's how I, Olga, mom. Yeah. And and we can go to the website. And if you are interested to sponsor a child or look into the programs, if anything is interesting, then you can always donate. And the programs, they have been running for so long and very efficient. And the cost the overhead cost is very minimal.
Yeah. So, so yes, it would be wonderful if you could donate, because that's our oxygen. That's what we live on.
Yeah.
And we just help the poorest of the poorest of the poor. I mean, really, the
And you have a book out there?
Yes. It's called Olga's Promise. And the name is because of the promise I made myself that night on top of that mountain, that's what I would do. So that's
you help Nepali children, and we are so blessed to have you in our life.
Thank you. I found this work.
Thank you.